Which MMO has the best fishing? Today we're going to find out. I have a massive selection downloaded and I'm going to be playing each one purely for the fishing and ranking it on a tier list to determine which one is truly the best. And this will not be including any MMOs where fishing has a major role within the game, like Fishing Online, RuneScape, or even Florencia, since that would be unfair. I want to know the best MMO that has a completely optional fishing side activity. And any private server or non-Steam MMOs will not be included because I've already downloaded more than 2 terabytes of pretty much every single notable MMO and more, all at once just to check out the fishing, and my hard drive will likely never recover from this. So let's get right into it. And we're starting with Vindictus, because Vindictus gave me the idea that started this video. They had an event promoting their fishing mode, which I was thinking of playing, but then I had the question of which MMO would have the fishing most worth my or your time, and I'll tell you straight out the gate, it's not Vindictus. Fishing can be acquired by accepting a quest and taking a voyage onto a boat where you sit there for as long as you wish, with fish spawning every few minutes and the rest of the time just being downtime waiting for the fish to spawn. And the fishing is just as lackluster as being stuck on the boat waiting for a fish to spawn, since you're given harpoons that you just aim at the fish and swing it onto the boat, give it a quick slap, and then you sell it for a measly amount of gold. But there's also a fishing rod option, but that costs gold to use and it turns it into a 100% idle game, with a fishing rod getting deleted from your inventory every single time something is caught. And there's some rare fish as well that go for more, and you can find some items mixed in instead of fish that will help you outside of fishing, like crafting, but the overall lack of interaction in a fishing game and the general clunkiness coupled with the minutes on end of just sitting around waiting for a fish wave to spawn makes Vindictus nothing more than a C-tier fishing game. And since we just talked about Vindictus, which can also be called Mabinogi Heroes, we might as well talk about Mabinogi next. You can pick up a fishing rod and bait and find a body of water to begin, and Mabinogi has something most other games on this list don't, a very unique fishing game that's also among the top minigames in this list, because you are the white lure here and you need to drag and keep the fish within the box during the time limit, and the rarer the fish, the harder that is to do, and it's a big step up from just moving left or right depending on which way the fishing is moving in most other games. But there's one small problem here. If you get your fishing rank up, it becomes completely irrelevant because you only have a few seconds to select catch before the game just auto catches it for you and automatically puts the next bait on as well. And I was pulling quests, I was pulling bandages, I was pulling shoes, wood, even literal garbage. They must have a big littering problem in this game. Good thing I knew fish did actually exist, because for me to rank out a novice fishing, I actually needed to catch one. And as you rank up more, that AFK fishing has a better chance of working, as well as a better chance of pulling things that aren't garbage, and you can get some pretty decent things like equipment or skill books or many more items, and there's higher tier fish that do have weights attached to them, which you can also view in your inventory as well as in the personal record book, and there's different bait and other equipment that can make the job easier. So all in all, Mabinogi is an A tier fishing game, but for it to be an S tier in my book, there cannot be a 100% idle and automatic fishing, because that defeats the point, and Mabinogi does not have enough features like in some other games on this list that will allow me to ignore the AFK parts, but what they have going is quite solid. But that's enough of the older games. Let's look at something a little bit more recent, and also something I don't know if it technically qualifies as an MMO, or at least as a traditional one, but next up is Warframe. Fishing is limited to spear fishing with various spears for various environments, most of which are an active war zone with a handful of different fish to collect in each zone, coming in a few limited sizes, but it also gives the weight. And you can dismantle fish for parts or standing that help you outside of fishing, or trade fish with other players, display them, craft them. Overall, there's just a lot to do with the fish, which is good, but I also think the fishing outside of servo fishing can be a tad lackluster, and from what I've seen, you can't see the weight after catching it, so I can't brag about how my fish is bigger than somebody else's, and with seemingly no way to show that you hit the max weight of 30 kilograms on a mawfish outside of the initial catch, Warframe is also an A-tier fishing game due to the wide variety of uses and the ability to show them off in their base forms, because that's great to see. Plus, when I found out by not having any weapons equipped, you can hot swap the fishing spear with the archwing, and then you can use the fishing spear for some mid-air and potentially trick shot fishing. Probably not intended to be in the game at all, but very cool. And next up, let's get the only other MMO on this list that's a bit untraditional out of the way. Realm of the Mad God. For Realm of the Mad God, you need to go to the Coral Reef biome, and you can find this NPC that gives you a fishing rod. And in the area he spawns in, there's some pools which you can control your lure into, and depending on what color the pool is flashing is the type of rarity of fish you will get. And occasionally, some colored orbs will spin around the NPC, and by turning in the fish rarity of those colors, you get some XP, and you also, if you complete all of it, get a chest, which, from my testing, either drops a potion or nothing. But supposedly, there's also a chance that those orbs could be an enemy or a boss that has a completely different drop pool, but during the time that I spent, I was unable to have that happen, and although the drop pool isn't that good for the chests or even to the boss spawn, the fish give a solid amount of XP, with ranges of 400 to 2000 for very little effort. And for the record, the low tier boss Sprite God only gives 200 XP, and tier 1 Oryx gives 25,000. So Oryx, the final boss of the game, is only 12.5 narwhals if you think about it. And that makes Realm of the Mad God a B tier fishing game. Because of how shallow the fishing is with no weights or anything else, it's merely just a tacked on side area, but it's good for what it does. And Throne and Liberty is also an MMO that does what it does quite well, for fishing at least. I have some negative things to say about the MMO as a whole, but I'm going to try to stay unbiased here and just focus on the fishing. You acquire a fishing rod by finishing a quest or picking one up from a contract vendor, but there's a variety of different fishing rods to collect from endgame activities, but they seem to be for the most part cosmetic or give some bonus to your fishing level. And you're given a whole codex for every fish, their habitats, what sizes you've caught with a badge if you catch the maximum or minimum. You also gain XP by catching fish, and for fishing itself, you get a bonus if you hit Q as soon as it bites, but then you just move left or right depending on which way the fish is swimming. And throughout doing that, you deplete the fish's stamina until you eventually catch them, and your fishing level determines how hard or easy it is to catch some fish. For example, at level 1, there's nothing I could do to catch this fish. It would just deplete my stamina too fast, so I need to level up more to catch bigger things. And fish can be used in various cooking recipes, so you can sell them for some solant, which is the basic currency of the game, plus you have a rare chance when fishing to fish up some items instead. And according to the forum, some people have pulled some pretty decent things, like Archboss material fragments, so all in all, Throne and Liberty is an S tier fishing game. It seems to reward you for fishing in all 220 different locations in the game, but nothing's stopping you from grinding out your favorite spot, assuming you have the bait to burn. And let's continue this into another MMO published by Amazon, Lost Ark. New World sadly won't be in this list, but I'll explain that later. And for Lost Ark, within your trade tools, you have the option of fishing. And you also get to level up that trade skill of fishing as you fish more, but that also means it's using your life energy for fishing, which means you can only fish a limited amount of times per day. And by going to a designated fishing spot, assuming you have a fishing rod, you can press E to cast a line, and then when the bob sinks under the water with that exclamation mark, you can press E again to instantly catch it. And you oftentimes catch multiple fish at a time, and there's only a very small amount of fish you can actually catch within the game. And by fishing more, you gain more levels that let you have a higher chance at treasure chests or other things that have a variety of rewards. I got a new fishing rod out of my first one, for example, and the rods have a rarity and random rolled stats attached to them, and also a durability. But you can get some decent things that aren't just fishing rods, and you can sell those fish that you catch on the market or use them for a few different crafting recipes, so all in all, that makes Lost Ark a B-tier fishing game. Held back by the simplification of catching, the lack of fish to actually catch, and the energy system limiting the amount of times you can actually catch a fish in a given day. And sadly, there's a few other MMOs on this list that limit fishing, but I don't know if any MMO does it worse than Tree of Savior. Tree of Savior's fishing is a peculiar amalgam of good and some of the absolute worst. Starting with the bad, it's completely idle, costs currency to use, and it isn't very sustainable since you make next to nothing fishing, and you can only catch 10 fish a day. Sorry, let me correct that. You can only pull up 10 things a day. Your trash counts towards your 10-day limit as well, just as much as fish do. And there's only one type of fish to catch, which is silverfish, or small silverfish, which is truly a shame. The good, however, is you can rub the fish that you do catch to rank them on a leaderboard for the week, and if you're number 1 for biggest fish of the week, you gain a temporary statue in your honor. And you have a slim chance of catching golden fish that you don't get to keep, it's just for fun, but it's a server-wide alert that gives every player an XP boost for 10 minutes, which is cool to see. And you can also use fish in cooking for some minor buffs, but with a 100% idle fishing that costs currency to do and the slim chance of even catching a fish, there's a super low percentile, I have like a 5% on my rod, to even catch anything every 20 seconds, coupled with the pretty much lack of use of fish within the game. Tree of Savior is our first D-tier fishing game. But not every game that limits fishing is abysmal. Within Wizard 101 there is a fishing system, and with most water you can look and you can see fish swimming around. And those are the exact ones that you can catch by using a fishing spell, which can be gained through a quest line with a fishing vendor. He will also over time give you upgraded version of those spells or different spells as you continue to catch fish, with your different school baits having a better success with fish of that same type. And one of the spells that you can get just shows you what type of fish you are dealing dealing with so you can use a more relevant bait. And there's also sentinel fish which attempt to scare away other fish that might bite your line, and many more little bits and pieces that make Wizard 101 have a really solid fishing mode, and the rewards are nothing to scoff at either. There's a weekly leaderboard for certain types of fish which you can compete in with weights, and the fish in general have weights, and there's a ton of different fish. You can display those fish in your aquariums in your house, as well as you have a chance at getting fishing chests when fishing, which grant some of the rarest and best wand skins that are completely unobtainable otherwise. Some of which are even from old retired promo codes, and the wand would just enter the pool of fishable wands when they no longer become available. My buddy has a few on his wall here, as you can see. And I'm really hesitant when ranking a fishing game that has an energy system, since you can only fish a limited amount of times per day without dropping money, but they do have weekends sometimes with unlimited energy for unlimited fishing, and you can also get some gear that gives you a bit more energy. So with all of Wizard 101's features between tournaments, limited cosmetics, display, and more, even with an energy system, Wizard 101 is an S-tier fishing game. And for the next MMO, let's talk about something equally nostalgic for some people, Adventure Quest, specifically Adventure Quest 3D. You can pick up a fishing rod from this NPC and then go to any fishing hold and click on it to begin fishing. After that status bar goes down, you have a mini game where you need to press the fish when it's over the colored section. That color also tells you the rarity of the fish before you catch it, with rarer fish having smaller zones and moving faster. As you continue and catch more fish, you can use different rods and gain more fishing power to fish in different locations, along with titles and other goodies. Plus, fishing is also used in a boss fight, and the fish itself can be sold or crafted into snacks. So all in all, Adventure Quest 3D is an A-tier fishing game, only held back behind the lack of weights or other mechanics that make other games in the S-tier really stand out. Adventure Quest 3D is very much just an average fishing MMO, and there's nothing wrong with that. And continuing with the cartoony nostalgia, the next MMO is Trove. For Trove, you can talk to this vendor to buy a fishing rod and lures, and they're relatively cheap, and you can consume a lure to be able to fish 100 times. The fishing itself is somewhat lackluster, with as soon as it starts bobbing, you just tap F again to instantly catch it, otherwise the line would snap, but there appears to be a wide selection of fish to catch, with weights included, and if they're over a certain threshold, then they're a trophy fish. And when you go to turn them in, you get a displayable trophy of that fish that continues to show the weight in addition to the mastery points you gain by catching new things. As well as you can gain various currencies, such as canned fish, which can be used to make food, or glim, which can be used to make a lot of non-fishing things. And with multiple different fishing rods that allow you to fish in different biomes and catch different fish, in addition to the 1 in 10,000 chance to get the Wish Fisher rod when fishing, or a small chance to pull a bubble dragon egg fragment that when you get enough of them lets you have a dragon mount that also gives you various bonus stats, Trove is comfortably near the top of A tier, only held back by the oversimplification and the lack of skill involved in fishing itself, because it's less fishing and more just running around quickly farming nodes. And apparently a few years ago they added a fishing skill tree, but I was unable to find that vendor, likely due to how low level my Trove account is, but it seems like it just added crafting recipes, so I shouldn't be missing out on too much. And the next MMO, Toram, slows it down a bit. The fishing in Toram is also apparently one of the best sources of money. Even when I was just starting my Toram playthrough for this video, a guy was begging for money, and somebody told him to go fishing to try to get the sunken treasure because it sells for 4 million. It's a bit unrealistic to fish in early game since you need parts that only come from a level 60 boss as well as a bunch of resources, but after farming my way there and crafting the bench, you can make a fishing rod using any combo of materials you would like, but depending on the materials you put in, the rods will have different stats which influence the minigame in various ways. And then you can find a body of water, keybind start fishing, and then the music fades away as you wait for a fish to bite. When it does, you can activate it to start a minigame, and my first time catching something, I got ticket pieces which can be used in the cosmetic gacha, which is apparently a weekly thing. And the second time I got my first fish. It gives weights, plus if you go back to your bench, you can preview the fish with the weight and you can dismantle it into ingredients for cooking or keep it as a display piece. And supposedly the devs are working on aquariums to actually display them in your house as well. Plus, coupled with the fact that there's just a random chance of sunken treasure that you could pull to instantly make you super rich, Toram is an S-tier fishing game. I think the very long time between fishing catches make it somewhat of an idle activity, which is a bit of a bummer, but at the same time, you have a very long time to actually claim the catch before it goes away. It's not like you're just constantly fishing idle, you can only do one at a time. And I wouldn't really want it to be shorter since there's very high ticket items in here, and it would devalue them if it was. So I have nothing bad to say about this game for fishing. It's not a game that I would recommend actively playing, but probably one of the best to have on in the background. Plus, the guild leader of the guild I joined was talking about how how there's a fish with glasses and they've been fishing for a long time yet have yet to get it. So there's some decent chases here in the game outside of the chest. Or maybe they're just really unlucky. But the next MMO, Karos, also has some decent chases, but they go about it in a very different way. By picking up a fishing rod from a vendor, you can equip it and click a body of water to begin fishing, and it's a 100% idle activity that seems to be a popular activity amongst people who are likely not playing the game. And looking at the drop table, there seems to only be 14 possible things you can actually fish up, 3 of which actually being fish. And there's no weights or anything, just static items that stack on top of each other. But some of the items can be used in various crafting recipes, or my personal favorite, and the chase, you can get these clams that you can gamble with the vendor for random items or exchange them with random items of various values. You can also gamble the goldfish for gem shards, which places Karos overall at the C tier, but I think without those gambling clams, this might have ended up as the second D tier. But for all my gambling fans out there, there's another MMO on this list that has fish gambling. Fishing in Fallout 76 can be found in the mire, where they give you bait and a fishing rod and can go into any deep water to begin fishing. And fishing in Fallout 76 consists of pressing a button when a fish fully bites, and then you get a unique minigame where you need to keep the fish within the cone until it reaches the center, and if it hits the outside edge then it gets away, with upgraded fishing rods making it easier to catch the fish. And there's a decent amount of fish to catch, with different areas having their own regionals in addition to legendary fish or the 12 different axolotls that appear depending on what month it is. And the fish can be dismantled for bits, which can be fed into the giant crab for random legendary items. Complete gambling. I got a baseball bat. As well as the fish can be cooked or displayed in your house, and with the addition of proximity chat and housing, Fallout 76 is a pretty good social fishing game. And when catching, you can inspect the fish, but it seems like the weights and stats here are just the generic data for every fish of that type, and the weights are not tied to each individual fish. Which is a shame, but I think overall, even without the individual weights, Fallout 76 can find its way into the low S tier with the chase fish, unique minigames, random legendary gear from fishing, and the overall potential social aspect, which the next MMO on this list also utilizes. Fishing in Final Fantasy XIV is a whole side job that you can pick up in the docks, complete with levels and abilities. And fishing itself is incredibly straightforward, with you just choosing a bait, pressing 2 to cast and 3 to catch it without any minigame or any other systems in the base fishing. The fish do have weights, and you get notifications whenever you hit a new record for the location that you're fishing in. Sadly, it does not seem like you can view every single record whenever you want, only the most recent one. But supposedly later on, when you level up higher, you unlock the ability to make collectibles, but that requires grinding that is not feasible for the short term or this video. As well as there's a ton of different fish or different areas to catch them in, including clouds, volcanoes, or even space, but as mentioned, I'm not that deep in Final Fantasy XIV yet. And there's various different bait and gear influencing what you get, such as perception gear that allows you to increase the chance that a fish has a higher weight. And by fishing, there's achievements to earn with rewards, alongside new associated abilities that can make your life easier when fishing and unlock more things like collectibles, spearfishing, treasure maps, fish detection, and a few other things. And overall, with all of that, Final Fantasy XIV is an S tier fishing game. It has practically everything I would be looking for, except for the dull, non-interactive fishing, which I'm pretty much stuck with, at least in the lower levels. But between all the abilities, rare fish, and the spearfishing that apparently does have a minigame that comes later, I'm trusting the wiki here, I've yet to see it for myself, it's enough for me to consider it an S. However, the fishing that I am experiencing in the under level 60 experience is definitely more like an A. But there's one more major part of fishing in Final Fantasy XIV, ocean fishing, and that's a boat that leaves every 2 hours, so after waiting on the docks for an hour and a half for the boat to show up, I must say bonus points for realism here on having to wait for a boat to come get you. I could finally begin ocean fishing, and it seems like there's different routes the boat takes every time, and you're also typically joined by multiple other players, which is nice to see. And you and your new fishing buddies get to take a tour of the various fishing environments with bonus events and missions to complete along the way. And this party-based fishing boat pushed Final Fantasy XIV into an S tier for me, even in the lower levels, and I'm a huge fan of the ending screen that shows all the rewards I racked up when fishing in this mode, plus that in your records you can see the total amount of fish that you've caught. And next up we have Neverwinter. By going to the Sea of Moving Ice and finishing some quests, whenever you run into the water you can switch to a boat form and start fishing. And fishing is pretty straightforward, you pretty much just follow whatever button lights up on your toolbar until you eventually activate the one that lets you catch the fish. And you can get a few different fishing rods or bait to make the catching of the rare fish easier, as well as there's hot spots for fishing, and there's a lot of different fish to catch in the Sea of Moving Ice, and there's also other areas that feature fishing like Chult. And you can sell the fish for money or give them to the fishmonger, at least in the Sea of Moving Ice, for the Elk Tribe support, which is a different form of currency. But there's no weights or a real trophy fish or other chase items you could potentially get when fishing. Supposedly the the highest rarity of fish can be dismantled into some crafting materials for artifacts within the area, but it's not like anything in the Sea of Moving Ice is best in slot anymore, and the lack of enticing rewards for fishing, coupled with the overly simplistic minigame that they have, Neverwinter fishing feels more like a meaningless chore instead of a fun side activity that I'm looking for, and that makes Neverwinter a B-tier fishing game. And for the next MMO on this list, we're staying old school with Rift. By picking up a fishing rod from a fishing vendor, you can slot it in as a skill and start fishing in seemingly any body of water. But different fish appear depending on if it's deep or shallow water, as well as what zone of the map you are currently in, and fishing is very simplistic with you just aiming where you want to put the lure, and then when a sound effect plays and your cursor changes, you just click to catch the fish, but sometimes that won't be enough, and you need to click again after a few seconds, and sometimes that repeats even more depending on how rare what you're trying to catch is. And there's fishing artifacts that you can pull up that grant rewards after getting a full set, some of which are good like exclusive pets, and you can also get some rare fish that can be exchanged for things, and otherwise fish are only used in crafting or to sell. But there's also trophy variants that you can collect as well for achievements and some other goodies. Plus you have a fishing level tied to your character, which shows your dedication outside of the collections. So Rift is an A-tier fishing game, only held back by the lack of interaction within fishing, leading it to becoming a slow and somewhat boring and repetitive task, compared to a game that features a minigame or some other way to combat bots from just mindlessly clicking. Moving on to the next MMO, Guild Wars 2 is part of the End of Dragons expansion. They added fishing, and there's over 200 different fish in this game that come in a variety of rarities, some being incredibly rare alongside certain criteria to even get them to spawn. And there's collection pages you try to get each fish that will reward you with bonus things and achievements, and some of the things that you get can be used to make the End of Dragons legendary gear or grant other goodies like titles. And as part of that expansion, you can also get a boat that can help you fish more freely, and fishing is somewhat straightforward with you just casting the lure, reactivating it when it starts splashing, but then you have a minigame similar to the ones that you've already seen on this list, but this one's much tougher. And I also have a lower fishing level than what is recommended here, but even if it was normal, some of these can be quite difficult. And the fish itself can be dismantled into crafting materials, which can be used to cook or traded for pets and other items. As well as the materials can be sold on the market for some money, and there's various fishing rod skins you can collect, various events that can spawn that grant you some limited things, including champion bags with various weapons, cosmetics, rare gear, materials, you name it. And those can also be sold on the market, some of which going for some pretty good prices. So all in all, Guild Wars 2 is a low S-tier fishing game. An interactive and decent minigame, plenty of rewards or chase fish or items that can make up for the lack of weights, and the need for lures can be a bit tedious, but you also make bank at the same time, with fishing being one of the best gold farms, so no real complaints. But let's talk about another MMO that's also a second iteration. For fishing in Phantasy Star Online 2, you can go to a blue gathering spot. Select the type of fishing you would like to do depending on the rods that you have available, and then when you get a red ring around your character, you press a button to catch the fish. There's a lot of different fish, and they're also for the most part using crafting recipes or daily challenges, but you are limited by the amount that you can catch per day since you have a stamina bar specifically for fishing, which sucks. But by having multiple people fishing in the same mission, you can get more fevers, meaning more fish for less stamina. But there are some ways to recharge the stamina bar, and although it does show you the weights of the fish, I was unable to personally find that record afterwards, but you do get a fishing level and there's various fishing achievements. However, with the stamina bar and the lack of fishing interaction, Phantasy Star Online 2 is only a B-tier fishing game. I feel like it could work really well in this game too, especially since a lot of the endgame and base PSO2 or New Genesis is just a lot of standing around. But hey, at least you have the casino. And next up is Elder Scrolls Online. Fishing in ESO can be done by finding a fishing hole. Depending on the area, it can be quite hard to find one. And fishing itself is very simplistic, with you just picking a bait that matches the type of water that you're fishing in, casting, and then pressing a button to catch the fish when it bites. It's definitely not setting any records for the activity itself, and the fish don't have weights or anything else, but fishing does have a pretty good role within the game. There's many different types of fish for each area that you're in, as well as you have a chance at pulling up some antique pieces, which for people unaware are pretty much Destiny exotics. You can only have one equipped. For example, my Templar has a Ring of the Pale Order, which is built for solo players and gives a lot of lifesteal, and fishing can give you a couple parts to make other ones like gauntlets that turn you into glass cannon. And in addition to those antiques, there's plenty of containers that you can pull up that can give you unique furniture or just other gear. And fish can be sold or crafted into various food buffs, and there's also achievements that give you unique clothing colors. So all in all, Elder Scrolls Online is an A-tier fishing game due to how rewarding it can be. But ESO isn't the only rewarding MMO. A lot of MMOs reward fishing, and Black Desert is one of the most popular popular to fish in because of that. You can get various rods or floats that give you various stats to help you, and when fishing, when you get a bite, you have a pretty good minigame consisting of a reaction speed test of sorts, and then you have to hit keys in order under a time limit to successfully catch the fish, with higher rarity fish requiring more key presses. However, there's one problem, just like we saw with Mabinogi. If you ignore the catch and don't press anything, it will keep going for you and begin AFK fishing, which I know a lot of people love and a lot of people partake in, but personally, I think it's a shame. Because Black Desert has a great fishing record book that shows you how many times you've caught each type of fish, your record weight, and how it even matches up with other players on the server, including weekly leaderboards and contests, and it's one of the best MMOs to do this. However, with the fact that AFK fishing exists, a lot of those records don't hold any meaning, since they likely weren't even there when it happened, or they don't even know that they hold that record since they're just racking in fish passively. And in an ideal fishing MMO, in my opinion, idle fishing would not exist, but BDO does have some ways to counter it with the fact that your rod has durability, and when you're fishing for the sake of money, the fish also have an expiration date, where they depreciate in value, shutting down the true hardcore AFK fishers. In addition to all of this, you also have a fishing level that lets you do different things like harpoon fishing or use different rods. And you can see where you rank on the leaderboard for that as well, but you likely have no hope of ever catching any of them since they're likely all committed to AFK fishing non-stop, which is a shame. But I still consider Black Desert Online an S tier due to the amazing records and leaderboards plus the unique game if you choose to do it. The next MMO takes that AFK aspect to another level though, and not necessarily in a good way. For Summoner's War Chronicles, you can go into a select zone, buy some bait, and then you sit down and you can have up to 4 fishing rods running at the same time. But I can only have 3 since I'm not level 49 yet, and fishing is completely idle. You can press the button to pull it up a couple seconds early, but if you do nothing, it will auto catch, auto apply the next bait, and you could leave this running all day if you wanted to. And it's cool that the fish have weights and you can see your best catch of the day, but with a 100% idle fishing, the weights don't hold any weight. See what I did there? And there's a collection page to see how many you caught with some bonus rewards, and otherwise you can sell the fish or use them in cooking, but a 100% idle fishing game, especially one as bare bones as this, makes Summoner's War Chronicles deserve nothing more than a C tier. But it certainly could be worse. And next up is Elsword. Fishing in Elsword takes place in the hot springs where you can pick up a fishing rod for a sizable amount of currency. And fishing is completely idle with it auto catching and auto putting on the next bait for you with no option to do it otherwise. And it also uses up your life stamina, so you can only fish a limited amount of times per day. And there's even pay-to-win subscriptions that can help you make fishing easier in addition to various parts or bait. And fishing in this game is pretty much just a means to get some resonance points when you're AFK, but for our purposes, with the lack of features, that makes Elsword a D-tier fishing game. And for our final MMO of this list, before we calculate which MMO can be considered the best, in Bless Unleashed you can pick up a fishing quest by talking to this dude on the bridge, and after talking with him and a few other NPCs, you can start to begin seeing fishing spots. And fishing within Bless Unleashed is relatively straightforward, with you choosing how much strength you want to put in and attempting to get it as close as possible to the fishing hole with various different fishing equipment that can help you. And then just following the instructions on the screen to slowly reel in the fish, such as holding down left click or letting go if there's an exclamation mark. And after catching the fish, you can see they do also have weights, which also carry on to your inventory. You can see them all individually, which is important because there's a fishing competition every week where you get put into a leaderboard if you caught that type of fish, with various rewards for hitting certain weight thresholds or by being better than other players. Plus you can dismantle the fish or sell them, and you have a chance at pulling up chests that contain a variety of items including legendary chests. So all in all, Bless is an S tier fishing game, but it's definitely not the best S tier on this list, so let's break them all down. Throughout this video I was looking for a few specific topics in each MMO, so let's look back on all of them to see which one wins each category and what a perfect fishing MMO would look like theoretically. And let's start off with the basics, the best minigame. I think Black Desert Online or Mabinogi takes the win for this. However, both of them can be done AFK, so if we take that into consideration, then it would be Fallout 76 with their circle, and having to keep the fish within the cone. For all my competitive souls out there, the games that make the best use of the weight system and competitions would either be Black Desert Online or Bless, or maybe even Wizard 101 with the individual weights and rankings. But you also can't forget games like Trove that feature trophy systems that you can display in your house and hang up and show off. But Wizard 101 also has that aspect, so I think Wizard 101 takes the cake here. And for the best MMO on this list where fishing is truly rewarding, it would likely go to Toram with their very high ticket sunken treasure. But if I wasn't going to pick Toram, then it would likely be Wizard 101 again, with their very limited edition wands that you can get. And finally, for the MMO that I had the most fun in and most likely to actually keep installed after all of this and continue fishing, it would likely be either Toram or Final Fantasy XIV. But which MMO do you think is the best for fishing? And I'm sure I've missed plenty of MMOs to have fishing. For example, MapleStory seemed to only have fishing in China, and my New World refused to run properly. So if you want to add any other MMOs to this list, like World of Warcraft, in the comments, or share your favorite fishing MMO, or share your rage at me for giving your favorite MMO a bad score. Maybe you prefer idle fishing games, unlike me who prefer something more engaged. But overall, I would love to hear it. But thanks for sticking with me, leave a like, and I hope to see you in the next one.